In this video, I will go through a wide range of different bits for Dremel and Rotary tools. In the first part of all Dremel bits explained, I talked about the more common bits that you can get in your toolkit. But in this video, I will expand into the lesser known bits for Rotary tools, as well as some familiar ones that I missed in the last video. These will be my own opinions, gained from using the bits and doing my own research. I'm not affiliated with Dremel or any other company that makes these bits, but I do get a small commission if you choose to buy anything discussed in this video through the Amazon links in the description, which I appreciate if you do. These are Radial abrasive discs, and they are great for polishing and cleaning. This is the cheap set from Amazon, and at the first glance these discs seem like junk pieces of plastic, but they are actually really effective. In the kit you get several discs for each grit, ranging from 80 for more aggressive polishing, rust removal and cleaning, all the way up to 1000 grit for achieving a smooth finish. With these discs you can polish quickly, and you don't have to use any compound. You can also stack discs onto the mandrel to cover a bigger area. As you can see here, it does a quick job of polishing this dirty and rusty knife to a smooth and glossy finish. But these discs can be very aggressive, and if you are polishing something with texture, like a coin, I would be careful with the rougher grits and using a too high RPM. They can round the edges of text and will make streaks if used too aggressively. But I do really like these. You get 6 mandrels, 1 mandrel for each grit. They are fairly inexpensive, and these will be my go-to when refreshing and cleaning anything made of metal. Dremel also has versions of these discs, but I think the cheaper set works just fine. These are like normal sanding drums for the Dremel, just longer. I can't really say that I like these bits. In theory, they seem like a good idea. A longer sanding drum can cover larger surfaces quicker. But these sanding drums are not perfectly round, so when using them, only the protruding part of the sanding drum will actually hit the material. And that part will get worn down quickly, and it will also make the sanding more uneven, especially if you use them at a high RPM. The recommended RPMs for these are 2000 to 5000. And the Dremel tools usually starts at 5000 RPMs. These bits are supposed to be used for polishing rocks, metal, glass and wood, but it does not seem to be effective at any of them. The sanding drum is a roll of sandpaper held together with glue at the bottom. So when the outer layer of sandpaper is worn down, you can just remove it and it will be good as new again. But sometimes the glue is incredibly tough to remove. So when I try to remove the outer layer of sandpaper, it either won't come off or the bit gets torn into pieces. So I cannot really recommend these sanding drums, but maybe I'm using them wrong. Chime in the comments if you have any experience with them. This is the Dremel Diamond Drill 662DR. This bit is good for drilling holes in hard materials like tile, glass and stone. The one I have makes 1 8-inch holes, but you can also get a larger version for making a 1/4 inch holes. The diamond drill is coated with coarse grit diamond dust, which grinds away material effectively. It is also hollow in the middle, so it has to remove less material. The 4 holes in the side of the bit help to clear out debris and water during cutting. I find this drill bit very useful and effective for cutting small, precise holes, while cheaper cylinder-shaped and round diamond bits that you can buy in multi-packs can also do the job. The Dremel diamond drill bit seems to be a little bit more efficient and durable in my opinion. This is a cup burr, also called a wire rounder, and it is designed for one specific purpose: rounding the sharp edges of metal wire. Cutting wire produces sharp edges. We don't want that. They can scratch you and are not pretty to look at. So, to shape the edges, we place the metal wire inside one of these cup burrs and turn on the Dremel. It just takes a few seconds with some pressure and working the wire, and the edge is transformed to a smooth, rounded surface that won't cut you. In the kit, you get a wide range of different sizes, with the largest one being able to take 3mm wire, and the smallest one is 0.9mm. I can see these things being very useful for anyone making jewelry or doing lapidary work. These are Carbide Burrs, just longer. These ones are 4 inches, but I've seen them on Amazon up to 6 inches long. They come in these fancy tubes. Carbide burrs are generally used for shaping, deburring and grinding metal. They really work great for that. With these long ones, we will be able to get into tighter areas where it would be hard to reach with the conventional carbide burrs. But there is a downside to the length of these burrs. You have to use them very softly and at a low RPM. Because the head of the burr is so far away from the attachment point, they will start to vibrate and jump if you use too much pressure. This will also make it remove material slower. I would recommend using the shorter carbide burrs in most cases, but if you really need some extra reach to get into tight spaces, these can be good to have laying around. If the shaft of the Dremel is not perfectly centered and you're using a high RPM, this can happen with these bits, so be careful. These are the Bradpoint Drill Bit 636 from Dremel. These bits are specifically designed for drilling into wood with a rotary tool. All of them have a 1/8 inch shank or smaller, so it will fit into the collet. The great thing about these is that you can drill holes that are up to 1/4 inch in diameter. With the other 6 to 8 drill set, the largest drill bit is 1/8 of an inch. These Bradpoint bits can be used on wood-like materials, and can also work fine for softer materials like plastic. But you cannot use these for metal like you can with the 6 to 8 drill bit. That will just make them dull really quickly. The Bradpoint bits also have a sharp point to make it easier to start the cut. These are bowl-shaped diamond burrs, also called Burrs. This shape will usually not be included if you buy a variety kit of diamond burrs, so it is worth including in this video. The concave shape of these burrs makes them great for creating some new shapes, like for example eyes on wood carving, but they do have a tendency of clogging up if you use them on softer woods. This little fox was not supposed to have eyes, but here is how they would work. The size of the heads ranges from 0.5mm to 8mm in diameter. But since these are diamond coated bits, you can use them on other materials as well. So if you work with rocks, ceramics and other hard materials, these bits will work fine. You can also use these to do some interesting texturing. These bits are the cheap, mass-produced kind, so I think they will wear down after some use. But they are not that expensive, so I think it's a fair deal. This is the Dremel Max metal cutting disc EZ545HP, and its main purpose is for cutting metal. Dremel states that this wheel will last 20 times longer than the 426 fiberglass reinforced cutting wheels. The Max cutting wheel is coated with an abrasive material called cubic boron nitride. This material is extremely durable and can handle high temperatures very well. The normal 426 grinding disc will slowly reduce in size when you're using it, as some of the material will grind off during use. The Max will stay the same size until it becomes dull. Let's cut this metal rod with both of them. The 426 cutting wheel is actually a little bit faster when cutting through this 5mm steel rod. I think it's because the Max cutting disc is a little bit thicker, so it has to remove more material when cutting through metal. I think the Max metal cutting disc is good and I'm happy to use it, but I think I'm going to stick to the more conventional fiberglass reinforced cutting wheels when cutting metal. But it is nice to not have to constantly buy new cutting discs. This is the Dremel 618 Chamfer Bit, and it is used for making chamfered edges in wood. We can use it with a plunge router, the cutting guide, and a routing table. To use it, we set the Dremel to a high RPM and run it along the edge of the workpiece with the edge guide guiding the cut. The result is a 45-degree beveled edge. Now, the quality is not as good as with a proper woodworking router, but with a little bit of sanding, I think it's good enough for a small DIY project. One thing to note is that the edge guide on these routing bits for rotary tools does not have a bearing, so the edge guide will rub against the wood and leave some small mark that we have to sand away. To avoid this as much as possible, we want to push the Dremel consistently and not stop in one place. These edge guide routing bits is not always included in the routing kits you can buy. I did not get a chamfer bit in the one I bought, but in some kits it will be included and the cove bit will be missing instead. These are the 4 most common types of edge guide routing bits you can get for rotary tools. Just make sure the ones you want is included in the kit. This is a cone-shaped sanding drum, and it can be used for sanding in tight spaces. The ones I have are the cheap rough grit kind. These were included in a kit with various other bits, but you can get a whole bunch of them for under $10. I really like these. They're great for getting into tight spaces and you can be really aggressive with them. So if you have any corners that you need to sand or remove paint from, these will work well. But they will round over the corners, so if you want to keep the 90 degrees, I would use something else. These are also useful for wood carvings when you need to sand curves where the normal 407 sanding drum does not fit into. These are more versatile and will fit into different sizes of curves. Now, they don't have the best durability, but since they are so cheap, I have no problem tossing the used one in the trash and putting in a new one. This is the EZ411SA sanding disc from Dremel, and it can be used for sanding wood, metal, and trimming pet nails. This sanding disc comes in 3 different grits, which is 60, 120 and 240. The ones I have is 60 grit. It uses the EasyLock mandrel to attach to the Dremel. The advantage of this is that you can put them flush against the flat surface, which makes it easier to achieve an even finish. So it works fine if you, for example, want to sand the bottom of a recess after doing some routing work. I like these better than a normal sanding disc that uses the 402 mandrel, because you don't have the screw in the middle that can get in the way. But don't use too much pressure when using these discs. They are best for light sanding. This sanding disc should be used at a maximum of 20,000 RPMs. If you use it at a high RPM, it becomes hard to control and it jumps around. You can also tilt it and use it. This way it becomes easier to control. These sanding discs are also used for trimming dog nails, but I don't have a dog. This is the flush grinding disc EZ545HP from Dremel. It is used for grinding, shaping and cleaning metal. These discs are concave in the center to allow for flush grinding. The Easy-Lock mandrel will not hit the material like it would with a normal cutting discs. They are also a lot thicker than a normal metal cutting disc. The main use of these discs is to shape metal. So if you need to round over an edge, or if you need to remove some nasty saw marks, this bit will do it. You can also do a little bit of cutting with it. So cutting off a nail and grinding it flush to the surface will be a good use case for this disc. But it won't cut as fast as the other cutting disc. But I kept encountering a problem with these bits. The metal that fits onto the disc to connect to the Easy-Lock mandrel kept falling off. The first time it happened because some of the disc material was molded into the opening for the Easy-Lock. So I struggled to fit the Easy-Lock and I pushed the metal out. On the other one I trimmed this material with a knife. But after I was finished using it and filming, the metal piece just fell off. I think Dremel has to rethink the way these metal pieces are connected to the disc and improve it. So I can't really recommend these bits as of now. And that is a shame because they work well when they work. This is a flap wheel sander and it is used for removing paint, shaping wood and for getting into curved surfaces. The flap wheel is basically just sandpaper that is glued onto a mandrel in a synchronized fashion. In this set I got from Amazon, I got two types of flap wheels. I like the thinner flap wheel best. The thicker flap wheel is a little bit stiff and heavy, but they are good for removing paint from flat surfaces. The thinner one is a little bit more flexible, so it will follow the shape of the material more easily. I use them for rough shaping wood. They are really good for removing nasty uneven spots and saw marks. But the wood will shape to the shape of the sanding drum. You can sand this flat again with the sanding drum if there is space for it. These flap wheels can be a little bit aggressive, so if you use it on wood, it will not leave a smooth, flat surface. But it is not only for wood. You can use it on other materials as well, like metal. I can recommend these cheap flap wheel sanders if you need to aggressively remove and clean up material from flat and curved surfaces. But please wear eye protection and a dust mask when using these sanding wheels. Some sandpaper and wood pieces will come flying out when you use it. These are aggressive wood carving bits, and they work great for shredding through wood and flesh if you are not careful. These cutting bits comes in a set with a variety of shapes. They have wide gaps between the sharp cutting edges, which means that they will take off bigger chunks of wood at a time. They are really effective at digging into wood and removing it while leaving a fairly clean surface. But the wide gap between the cutting edges comes with a downside. If these bits gets the chance, the cutting edge will catch the wood and run off and do a kickback. So I would not use these bits for detailed wood carving where I hold the workpiece in one hand and a flex shaft in the other. Keep your workpiece safe and steady and never hold your hand on the right side of these bits, because that is the direction of the kickback. You can also clamp the workpiece down to get more control over the rotary tool. But they are really fun to use and removes wood like butter. The higher RPM, the smoother they will cut. And it makes less dust than other wood carving bits. It is more like small wood chips. I like this cylinder shape best for removing material effectively. Some of the other shapes, like this concave eye cutter, I would stay away from. If you dig this into the wood like it seems you're supposed to do, it will sometimes work and sometimes it will jump out of the pocket and move around wherever it wants. These bits are sharp when you get them, but I have a suspicion that they will get dull after some use. They work well for removing wood, but be careful with them and use them with a soft touch. This is a pad sander. It is used for sanding a wide range of different materials and shaping wood. The sanding pad is very similar to the flat sanding disc from Dremel, but it has some differences too. In this kit you get many different grits, ranging from 80 grit to 10,000 grit. You can use them on all materials that you would use sandpaper on, like plastic, metal, wood, leather and so on. The sanding disc is attached to the pad with Velcro, and you also get a soft foam buffing pad that you can use if you want a softer touch. The pad backing gives you the ability to use these bits with a little more pressure than a normal sanding disc. This, combined with a rougher grit sandpaper, makes it good for shaping wood and removing material. It removes these saw marks on this block of beechwood pretty effectively. But surfaces you make with these are almost impossible to make completely flat because of the small size of the bit. So the surface will become smooth, but it will have dips and bumps, especially when used on wood. It is best to use this bit at a lower RPM, with a max of 15,000 RPMs. The sanding disc will sometimes slip a little bit on the Velcro and get off-centered at the higher RPMs. This bit is also pretty heavy, so it can be a little bit hard on the Dremel. When you use this bit flush against the surface, it wants to move around and is a little bit unstable. This is more prominent at the higher RPMs, and it is manageable when using a low RPM. It also becomes more controllable when you tilt it a little bit when using it. I like to use this for rough work, like shaping wood and cleaning paint. But if you have other experiences or uses for these, please leave a comment, we want to know. This is the Dremel Max EZ545HP. It is used for cutting into hard materials like rock, glass, wall tile, and similar materials. This wheel looks similar to the Max Life metal cutting disc, but it is coated with diamond dust instead. It is not supposed to be used for cutting metals. It will work for a little while, but it is going to wear down pretty fast if you do. Use metal cutting discs for metal. When cutting hard materials with this wheel, it is best to use some water to cool down a cut and reduce dust from building up in the air. Dremel claims that this wheel is 3 times more durable than the EZ545 diamond cutting disc. I've used the EZ545 quite extensively, and it is still going strong. So if this one holds up to those promises, it will last for a long time. This Max Life cutting wheel is a little bit thicker than the EZ545 cutting disc, but it does not feel like it cuts any slower because of it. I really like this Max Life cutting disc. It feels smooth to cut with and is easy to control. They say you can use this wheel on some types of plastics and wood as well, but I would be careful with what type of plastic and wood I use it on, because there is a high chance that it will clog up the diamond cutting edge. And as you can see, it just burns this beechwood. But for harder materials, it's pretty good. And that was all the bits for this video. I will make a part 3. So if you know about any other bits for rotary tools that I didn't include in this video or the first video, please leave a comment and I will try to include it in the next one. See you next time.